welcome everybody to Raw Recovery, a Trudging Together podcast. My name is Dion. I'm going to be your host today, but we have a reoccurring guest, Lucas. Lucas, it's good to have you back, man.
Thanks for having me. I enjoy talking with you, so this is a pleasure.
Absolutely, man. You brought up a topic in a meeting last week, and I loved it so much. I'm like, let's go live and talk about that. So what we're going to do is we're going to put on the theme song, and we will see you folks in about 47 seconds.
The woods can be dense for our acts. The sea can be deep for our diving. Hope comes and stops us in our tracks. Bravely we prove in our striving, trudging together each day. Where there's a will, there's a way.
All right, and welcome back to Raw Recovery. For those of you who don't know, that song was written and performed by my niece when she was 17 years old. And there's actually a full version. There's a full version of that song. I'll make it cry. But I don't have a really good recording. We're going to try and get her back into the studio. All right. I'm going to share this to the Trudging Together family, and we will go ahead and get started here. Now, Lucas was on before and told his story. That was what? Probably 6 months ago or so, huh?
No,
Was
3 months.
Was it? Yeah, I don't know. I don't even know what's said in podcast. You're like, how'd it go? I'm like, good, I guess. I don't really remember. And I certainly do not go, I was a musician at one point, and I figured out, don't listen to yourself incessantly. You just don't do that. So, but welcome to the Daily Trudge. For everybody that's coming on live, this is going to be, so for anybody listening to the podcast, we're doing this live also. You do not have the, you will not have the camera, but I'll make sure you try not to get confused here. So if you are here, please say hello, whether you're watching the live or the rewatch. And we're getting ready to hit that 3-minute mark. That's about when we start. Put the chat overlay on. Woo, moving around. So, Lucas, the topic was stay until the miracle happens. And my curiosity is, was there something that happened or something that made you decide that was because it was a great meeting. So good that I wanted to use it as a topic. But did something happen to have you come to that conclusion for that topic or something?
Yeah, I was in Pensacola, Florida, and on a business trip, and I have curated my business trips to stay in hotels that are near meetings for early in the morning so that I can hit a meeting while I'm on the road.
Absolutely.
And so this is a 7 a.m. meeting, and that's a repeated meeting for me where there's only about 4 or 5 people that show up, which I've actually come to like those because they're more intimate and honest. And
they are. Zoom seems to be getting a little inundated with no camera, just listening.
Yep. Yep. And so, I remember in my early sobriety, I hated those meetings because I was like, oh, I have to share now.
Yeah.
I have to say that. And now I'm in the place like if I don't share, I feel like I've missed out. Not because I feel like I'm adding value, because sometimes I got stuff bottled up that I need to let out.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of elements to that. That's probably another topic in itself.
Yeah.
But
go ahead, man.
I was going to say, we're going through the meeting, and it was a topic about, it was to the wives is what it initially talked about. And then a guy that is also a repeated visitor had opened up, and the context, mind you, is all men.
Of course, yeah.
We're at the end of the meeting. He just double dips and shares and says, when does the miracle happen? I'm at 9 months sobriety and I'm just lost, and I feel like I'm just doing the same thing over and over again, and it's just not happening. And that inspired me to go on a soapbox monologue because I completely connected with that feeling.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. Um, Now, the thing is, I think what the first thing that we should probably talk about is what is the miracle? What is the miracle that we're waiting to happen? And that might be different for some people. What was the miracle for you? What was it that kind of caught you and you were like, yeah, this is kind of it? Hi, Brian. Good to see you.
huh. Hi, Brennan. For me, the miracle is coming to accept that waking up every single day was a gift. I had
Yeah.
lacked gratitude prior to sobriety in any way, shape, or form. In fact, I acted as if the world owed me something.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And I still fight that battle today. I mean, I can easily revert back to oh, you owe me this. This is the way the world should go.
Man.
I'm in control.
I actually have a list of what the world owes you, and here it is. It's a blank
Yeah.
page for those guys that can't see the camera. Yeah, nothing.
Please make sure to post that to Facebook so that the world can see it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
well, I responded with, I told a story, and I'll tell the story here. I didn't in the group that we were sharing, but I remember it inspired me to go back to this event that happened. So in my first year of sobriety, or just like anybody, sponsor told me not to date. And
Yeah.
me being the good alcoholic that I am, I did not listen.
Of course.
So I went on a date at 9 months sober, and I met a woman that was 14 years sober. And, I'm all excited, like she's going to teach me to be real solid in my sobriety. And so we go on this date, and we went to a meeting, and then we had pie and coffee after the meeting. And she asked me how long I had been sober. She probably had an indication that it wasn't very long. And I told her 9 months, and she said, "Oh, you're just a baby." As she grabbed my hands and talked to me in that way, like she was very proud of the fact, but also coddling me like a child, of course, which I took offense to.
Absolutely.
And so I'm like internal boiling mad, but trying to keep face and smiling. And I call my sponsor on the way home. As much as I want to still go on a date with her, but I'm like, how do I express my anger towards this without, offending her? And he's like, "Why are you mad?" I said, "Because I've been 9 months sober for the first time in my life. I deserve recognition for this."
Oh.
Right. And
Yeah.
he laughed, and I got
Yeah.
more mad at the fact that he laughed.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Of course
Then he could, and if your sponsor isn't pissing you off, you're not doing it right. So
That's right. I just talked about that earlier. We covered the 4-step. I'm like, if they said they don't ever get angry, poke the bear and make them angry and go, yep, there it is.
Yep, and that applies in so many facets of life now that I realize, it's okay to upset the people you care about the most. It generates this open, honest discussion.
Yeah, and growth.
Yes.
And growth. We got to learn how to have hard conversations.
Yes.
Now I'm gonna digress a little bit because Brent is asking, yes, do tell, what is the miracle?
Well, could I finish the story?
Absolutely. Go ahead, and then I'll tell what I think it is. But go for it.
So, my former sponsor, he told me to go talk to Big Steve at the meeting, and Big Steve had been sober for 40 years, and I said, okay, I don't understand why he's asked me to tell him. So I go tell Steve the same story, and he laughed and laughed, and he's like, and I was just like, why is everybody laughing at this? And he said, young man, do you understand how I got to 40 years sober? And I said, I have not the slightest clue, but I hope one day I'm in your shoes. He's like, well, I'm going to give you one piece of advice that I've learned along the way, and I had to learn it the hard way, much like you are right now. He's like, every day I wake up, I haven't been this sober before, and I haven't been this length of sobriety before, so I have to treat it as if it's my first day.
Yep.
He's like, if I don't treat myself as if I'm a newcomer and go to as many meetings as possible and, stay actively involved in sponsorship and my own sponsor and my own inventory and stay connected to my higher power, then I'm going to relapse. And as long as I understand that, I'll be okay. But he's like, I didn't make it to 40 years by beating my chest, thinking, oh, I made it to 38 years.
Yeah. Look how high I can jump. Look at me.
Right.
But I understand that because I didn't know how to get good attention. And it still happens with me, because I do a lot of work in the community. And sometimes I go try, I'm like, I need some fucking recognition here, man.
Yeah.
And we talk a little bit, but then she gives me the recognition so I don't go out buttonholing everybody. Yeah. Now, I tend to think that the first, because there's a lot of miracles in the program, and those are going to kind of be up to us and how open-minded we are. But the first miracle is the perfect release of the obsession from alcohol. That's the miracle we're talking about that we want you to stick around for, because it's a perfect release and you really don't have to do much work. I mean, like 4-step and this other stuff. I remember this time around, I went to 7-Eleven to go get my big gulp and my soda because I needed my sugar, right? Or I was kidding someone. But I came back and I have to walk by the liquor store twice to do that, right? And I got home and it was a little bit later. I'm like, I didn't even think of the liquor store. And that, I mean, even though it seems small and just a thought, it felt like an accomplishment that, you know, finally I got into a place. And it's important that that miracle happens, because once our obsession is gone, then we can really get to work. Then
Yeah.
we can get to work.
Yep.
And those first 3 steps, even though it seems like all about us, it is the process of understanding there are other people in the world. We're not the only people. I mean, it's a miracle in and of itself that we even walk into the program.
Yeah.
So
100% agree with that. I think one of the things for me is realizing, okay, every day I wake up is a gift, because
Mhm.
it's a possibility, and there were several possibilities in my alcoholism and, you know, my active addictions that I could have not woken up. I could have been dead. And
Yeah.
it's if I don't wake up with that immediate moment of gratitude, and honestly, I don't.
Yeah.
I I am checked to a point like, oh my God, I'm an alcoholic still. I still need to recognize that there's an opportunity here, because
Yeah.
the sobriety, the ability to navigate life circumstances, and that doesn't mean that it's going to be good.
Yeah.
To navigate the circumstances sober and be present for it and
Yeah.
show up how I can contribute for it, that's a gift in itself.
Man. You know, I don't wake up with the best attitude, but the first thing that I do is pray.
Yep.
And that tends to change my view pretty quick. But I never get out of bed going, oh, another day to do this. It doesn't, you know, but I'm not as spunky as I used to be. But I can get myself there by doing certain things, because, you know, I go to bed a recovered alcoholic and I wake up a drunk again. And
Mhm.
it's just a new day. But knowing that, switching from the I have to the I get to, you know.
Yeah, that's a phrase that's recently come up in my life in this past year, is that I get to. You know, I look at, like, I went to um a funeral earlier this year, and the
Okay.
attitude changed from, instead of, oh, I have to do this, no, I get to do this. I get to
Yeah.
show up for someone that has their life has concluded and they've transitioned to the next
Hmm.
part of it. Um, whatever that may be, it's the disconnect from the fact that I don't have to play God anymore. I just get to
Yeah.
show up in whatever is laid out in front of me.
And
And
a lot of freedom in that.
oh my God, it's like, in a way, it's almost released the burden of responsibility, but it's
Yeah.
created more
Yeah,
responsibility at the
exactly.
same time.
Well, it's funny because it's the relief of a responsibility that never existed.
Yep. Yeah, well,
You know.
exactly. Like, you told me I had to show up for another person's funeral when I was in my alcoholism. I would have told you I'm going to find something else to do.
Yeah. Or I would have been too drunk to make it, because I would
Yep.
have been home the night before going, oh, my poor friend died, and pour me and pour me and pour me another drink. And I
Yep.
would continue with that. And I probably wouldn't even be awake for the next part, because, you know, when I'm in my cups, my brain just doesn't want success. You know, yeah, we bring things to a certain point when we're drinking, and then we just yank it all down around us,
Yeah.
so that we
Exactly.
have an excuse to drink. But now we have these tools, right? And it's kind of exciting sometimes when a problem comes along and we're like, hey, I know this is a kind of a bad thing, but I know how to solve this. I know, and I'm not having to do much thinking. I'm not having to do much, but I already know how to solve this. It's pretty clear to me. Um, And wow, what a switch for us alcoholics. I feel like I was born this way. I was always an ass. Always.
Yeah, you and I have talked about that before. So I certainly feel that way too. Like I look back at my life and I've done that thorough inventory, and I have certainly was born an alcoholic. I've been like this since birth,
Yeah.
and it didn't start with drugs and alcohol, but it certainly
Mhm.
transitioned into it because it's so easy to access.
Yeah. I just think I was on a dry drunk until I was 13.
Can relate, yes.
You know, it's really the only thing that I can relate it to that I think everybody would understand. Um, you know, there's a lot of miracles that happen, but that first one and being relieved of that, and we're not fighting anymore, right? And then the neat thing is we get to come to terms with alcohol itself, that we no longer love it or hate it in an extreme way, but we become neutral. And that in itself, that is the process that gets us to the point where we get to do these things now because we're free. You're free people. So we can go anywhere on God's green earth as long as we have the right intentions. And usually I can, as a person, I can usually decide that I will have good intentions. You know, now that doesn't always happen. On Thanksgiving, I was invited to Thanksgiving. I'm like, no, you haven't invited me in 5 years. Why are you invited? You know, and there were other things, but you know, those are just boundaries because I knew if I went, I knew I was just not in a place. I would have stirred stuff up. I really
Yeah.
would have. So that's it, you know, and you know, that recognition that I am who I am, but you know, we're allowed to have bad days too. Well,
Well, I think, it's interesting. I went to a meeting in St. Louis this week, and it was the usual stop for me there. And the topic was, it was from a reading of As Bill Sees It.
okay,
And it was very pointed observation of, I'm going to paraphrase, but is being able to look at other people doing something wrong or alcoholic, etc., and being able
sure,
to accept them with grace. Um,
yes,
and it's it was so many good shares that were going around the meeting, but how this overlaps for me is I talked about it was really hard for me to look back at my previous actions in my fourth
hmm,
and fifth step and to
yeah,
announce that out loud and be like, oh my God, I forgive myself. Like my first amend had to come to myself and God.
yes, absolutely, it
And
does.
that's when I truly embarked on this ability of sobriety. And I believe that that's part of the miracle happening. It's like, okay, I can look back in the mirror and cringe, but then also say, I love you at the same time. Two
Hmm,
truths can happen at the same time,
yeah,
because I'm not proud of what I've done. I don't want to look back in the mirror and say, yeah, that's okay. But I do want to look back and say, okay, that's the best I could do in that moment in space. And now I can look at other people and have that same level of forgiveness to say, it's okay.
yeah, yeah. We understand because, but for the grace of God, go. That's me. You know,
Yep.
I don't need alcohol in me to run around and be a jerk. I'm not bragging, but I can be the same Mr. Hyde without alcohol. It's alcohol is not the requirement for Mr. Hyde. So it just lowered my inhibition so he could come out more frequently.
Well, I'll tell you what, that was a wide open awakening for me. Is like, oh, I don't need alcohol to be a complete jerk. I don't need
Mhm.
alcohol and drugs to completely be this deviant criminal who
Yeah,
can do whatever he thinks whenever he wants. It's like, oh, I can do that in sobriety.
yeah. Well, and that's another one of our miracles here is that we get to settle our past,
Yes.
right? And the process, and I agree because you've got to forgive yourself first. I tend to think that forgiveness is my higher powers deal. I'm not God. I can't do forgiveness, but I can utilize it to get to a place for acceptance so that I see them as a child of God now instead of my intrusive thoughts of judging them.
Well, and I'll take it a step further because 100% aligned with that is like I'm at work sometimes and I have an intense job and it causes me to be in different cities all the time, which
Uh-huh.
things happen that piss me off, and I'm
Oh
just
yeah.
like
Sure.
immediate knee jerk response is to be outwardly and abrasive. Like
Yeah.
you're gonna hear what I think about this situation. And the miracle for me in those moments now is to, instead of letting it fester and turn into a resentment, I'll
Yeah.
recognize that that's happening because of the toolbox I was given.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'll call my sponsor, sometimes I'll be able to recognize without his guidance, and go to that person and apologize and say, you know what, I took this the complete wrong way. Help me understand.
Yeah.
And that in itself is a gift, because in my alcoholism and addiction, hell no, I was immediately judging. I didn't open the door to say, how can I understand your side of the street better?
Yeah. I think we go from assuming to presuming, because assuming is my reaction. Presuming means I put a little bit of thought into it. So yeah, I do the same thing. I go up and I say, I'm not sure I understood you right. Can we try this one again? Yeah. That happens quite often with texting.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. Sometimes I just call the person, like, can we just talk this out, because I'm not understanding. I don't want the emotions to come out.
Yeah. Well, then you get on the phone. They're like, hey, how you doing? I'm like, they're not angry at all. But the text was clearly angry, but it's just, my perception of it, but, being able to, here's one of the miracles, I believe, of the program. I can look at myself in the mirror, even if I know that I've done something wrong in the past, because I brought my problems to justice. And justice is forgiveness with action. That's what that is. And now, this is the way I kind of see is I love who I am today. And if all that stuff didn't happen, I wouldn't be who I am. So I got to be grateful for the things I did do, but brought to justice. That doesn't mean I get to repeat them. But it makes me aware of, hey, man, there's this process here, and there's other people in this world that are hurting. And now I've been given all this grace. It's time for me to pass that love on.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. We talked in our previous chats about emotional sobriety. I believe wholeheartedly this is the intersection of that. The miracles happen when I've finally woken up to my own emotions, saying, oh, you know what? Not everybody perceives anger and rage the same way that I do.
That's right.
And I need to wake up and realize, okay, I can sense when someone's upset at a situation, but they're going to handle it differently.
Yeah.
And understanding that allows me to navigate in a more curious way to say, okay, what are we both trying to achieve, versus it's me versus you battle. It's really become a me versus me battle. Like, how can I move past my own emotions to say, what can I learn? Because that rage is teaching me something about myself. Why don't I like this? And like you said earlier, I believe everybody has good intentions, but what their direction is can also be in a point to where, like, so often I am narrow-minded, like maybe they're not thinking about the entire perspective either. And my purpose is to help expose that, or maybe I'm not seeing it the right way. We don't know unless we talk about it.
Yeah. Just yesterday I was in a meeting and it was about sponsorship, and I'm pretty hard-headed. I pick my sponsees. I'm like, nowhere in the big book does it say that. I'm like, if somebody wants to prove me wrong, they can. And so he sent me a pamphlet that says, how do you find a sponsor? I still don't agree with it. Doesn't mean I agree, but it's there, right?
Yeah.
But so I'm instead of not agreeing with it, maybe I can work with it instead. Maybe I can say, okay, yeah, I'll take you on, but I can tell you this: anybody that's ever asked me to be their sponsor has never made it to the second meeting with me. They make it to the first one, but then they're just gone after that. So.
Well, it's interesting you say that. My sponsor has an incredibly rigid way of doing the steps, and I appreciate the fact that I've been through it. But, I have sponsees and walk them through the steps the same way. And 2 of the 3 don't really talk to me very much because they don't want to work past step 2 and 3.
Oh, yeah.
And that I can tell you I'd have to use more than 2 hands to count the amount of times I've had somebody say, I want you to be your sponsee. And then all of a sudden they're not talking to me anymore because they found out the amount of writing and reading they're going to do.
Yeah. Yeah. I've been around this program for a while, and it's just now that I actually have sponsees that are getting sponsees.
Yeah.
And I've been in this program since, I went to my first meeting in 1984, but 1989. And so that tells you. There again, I don't know of everybody. Sometimes we plant the seeds, but there again, there's the miracle of it. We get to do these things.
Yeah.
All these people out here, and I really like this point of the program is we get gifts that nobody else in this world gets because of our arduous life. Because we went through something hard, we feel a freedom, we feel a happiness, a joy that other people will never, ever, ever understand or have a chance at.
You know, there's such that's almost pivotal that happened in my sobriety. I'll never forget this moment. There's been a pretty integral man in my life I've had actually a lot of tension with, I disagree with his actions, but he's an incredible leader within the AA community. And outside of the instances where we butted heads, and I've had to admit that it's because of my own stubbornness,
Sure.
he helped expose to me this point where I admitted, I'm so grateful that I'm an alcoholic.
Yeah.
And so many people are confused by that statement. They're like, you wouldn't take it back and go back and not do all the drugs and alcohol you've done?
Yeah.
No, to be honest with you, I said, I don't know if I'd ever look at life the same way I do now. I wake up and say, what am I grateful for? Yeah. And I pray and I connect with my higher power. It's not fake. It's authentic.
Yeah.
And I would never want into something fake just because it is the right thing to do. I had to get here through a road of hell.
Yeah.
And for that, I wouldn't wish it upon anybody. Trust
Absolutely
me on that.
Not.
But at the same point, I'm so grateful I'm an alcoholic because it gives me this opportunity to self-reflect and then figure out how to be of a contributor to society, not a sucker.
Yeah, exactly. And I can't think of any other reason in my life why I would have sought for a higher power either.
Right.
I'm very grateful that I'm an alcoholic because I have a higher power now. And because life is beautiful. And if none of that happened, I wouldn't know it. Now I get to see a beauty other people don't get to see. Well, that's not true. There's a lot of people out there that they're already that way. But, there's something I call the warm blanket theory. And it's, you're in bed, it's the middle of winter, and your dad likes to heat it like 60 degrees, so it's cold as fuck. And you wake up and your covers are off, you're all, and you grab the covers and you put them on. I'm getting a little bit of feedback. And you put the covers on, you feel this warmth. But you would have never felt that warmth if the covers wouldn't have fallen off. So in order for us alcoholics to feel this extreme happiness, which is no good for us either, the further you go down, the more you're going to feel this way too. So I think it's unique. And the fact that, I go from destroying my own community to being one of the only people in the community that can help other people.
Well, it's so interesting. Like you brought up something that I believe is pointed at that young man's questions that came up in that meeting in Pensacola I referenced at the beginning.
Sure.
I remember that moment where the pink cloud went away. And I was like, wait a minute, I have to deal with life on life's terms? What the fuck is this? And I thought it was going to be all confetti and balloons and celebrations. And, when that illusion slipped away, I grasped at it like a 5-year-old looking for their blanket, the comfort. Right.
Absolutely.
And I wanted that to stay there. But part of the lesson in this is learning the same reason that I drank and drugged for 23 years was I was looking for that perpetual happiness that's in fact an illusion.
Yeah.
And when I stopped buying into that illusion is when life really starts happening and the gratitude can really set in. Because when I can be grateful for the fact that I lost a job, or I can be grateful for the fact that that I'm still in debt more than I'd like to admit. And, but at the same fact is those are gifts. Now I have an opportunity to still be of service, and it took a while for me to get there because navigating those terms is okay, so I don't like these circumstances. Well, how do I get to that pink cloud again? The reality is I went to meetings every single day. I talked to my sponsor every single day. I prayed every single day. And that's where the discipline topic happened. It's if I focus on those steps, when life isn't going the way that I want it to, because, my perception is God, I go back to the root of the toolbox I was given by good sponsorship to say, why don't I just go to a meeting? Or why don't I call another alcoholic?
Yeah. And Brent has a question here. I'm going to try and answer it. Is when did your pink cloud dissipate? So the pink cloud is a culmination of a couple things. It's actually kind of clinical. The pink cloud usually happens, number one, that we've decided that we're actually going to do something about our alcoholism. And then two, you got a good night's sleep.
Yeah.
You got a good night's sleep. You haven't had sleep in years. When you drink, you don't dream. When you don't dream, you don't REM. When you don't REM, you go cuckoo. Right?
Yeah.
That's what it is. My pink cloud, the first time, I don't remember, it was probably a couple weeks. But this time around, I didn't get one. You don't get when you have a amount of time and you go out and come back, there is no pink cloud again. You cannot experience something new twice. So it won't happen. Bren, I don't think you're on a pink cloud. I think you're just enjoying life it's what it is. Yeah. Pink cloud means your head is in the clouds.
Yeah.
It is an overabundance of excitement. Okay. So the saying is, this too shall pass. So enjoy it while you can, because it's just, you're feeling it. It says in the big book, you will know a new happiness. You will know a new peace. Well, this is new. So you're excited. Okay. So it could be a little dangerous. The key is that you keep your feet firmly placed on the ground. That means go to meetings, talk to your sponsor. But yeah, it's okay to be a little elated. But those emotions in extreme, any emotion in extreme is bad for this alcoholic. So,
well, I want to add to that is to, when my life transitioned from having shitty days where, oh, today sucked. And sometimes those days would be shitty after 5 minutes of being awake.
yeah.
But when it's transitioned to this whole attitude that I've taken on, it's okay, this is a character building day. This is for me to realize, okay, what am I supposed to learn?
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm forever in battle with myself and my own ego that, when life happens on life's terms, because there's 8 billion people on this planet who have unique set of circumstances and a unique perspective in the world, there's bound to be conflict. And
Sure.
me, who likes conflict and gravitates towards it, is going to find almost every bit of it I possibly can.
Oh, yeah.
And so instead of engaging it and saying, all right, what can I learn from this? It becomes almost a fun game, but I've stopped seeking out because I realize it's going to find me.
Yeah, we do get to approach our problems differently, sorry to get in a good stretch there.
It's like a cat.
I've got plenty of those. I'm surprised we haven't been invaded by a cat,
Well,
Bren, you're experiencing sobriety and recovery. I think that's just what it is, because a lot of times, I used to think happiness was the goal, right? And, I just want to be happy. I just want to be happy. But I found that happiness is a dividend from doing something.
Yes. It's a cause and effect.
Are you reading that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll help you out. I'm chasing something, but going with the flow. Yeah, you're chasing God.
Yeah, that's exactly
good.
What I thought of.
Do this. Stop questioning it and just enjoy it. That would be my suggestion. Anytime we say what if or but, we're questioning God. So enjoy the gift. Quit trying to figure it out. We don't know. You're dealing with something that our finite minds can't come to a conclusion about. It'd be trying to describe my higher power. I'm going to fall short.
Yeah, I agree with that 100% because I started accepting that there's other powers in play here, and all I can do is figure out, okay, how can I help make this better? What can I do? Sometimes making something better is shutting up. So,
yeah,
and I'm not very good at that.
Yeah, they say that 80% of the program is keeping your mouth shut. That doesn't mean I do it.
You reminded me of a story, actually, just saying that I was about 6 months in the program, and this another leader that has been inspirational to me in my journey, he said something about not sharing and telling his sponsees to shut up for the first 6 months of the program. Like,
Sure.
don't share. And a very interesting perspective, right? And I don't necessarily
Sure.
agree with it to this day, but what it did is it helped me reflect, like, holy shit, I like to think that I know everything. And
Yeah.
so I'm gonna try that. I'm gonna try shutting my mouth for 6 months in meetings. And I did it. And it built this credibility to say, oh, I can keep my mouth shut if I really focus on it.
Sure.
But it also helped me realize that I don't know everything, nor will I ever. And
Nope.
that's another connection with God. It's like, what evolved from that is realizing there's God moments that happen that if I just listen, I'll get the guidance and direction I need in the world around me. And that is part of the miracle that's happening. It's like, oh, I
Yeah.
don't need to make up anything. It's happening all around me.
Yeah. That's right. When we start to get to see the forest for the trees, my experience was a little different in the fact that so I've been around the program for a little bit. And when I first entered the program, if you had under 30 days, you didn't get to speak. And here was the reason why. And I don't mean to sound mean. You didn't have anything to offer except the fact that it doesn't work out there anymore.
Yeah.
Because what you need to do is quit listening to the thoughts in your fucking head, take the cotton out of your ears and shove it in your mouth. Right. And it was a little bit harder. Now, I know that, I mean, there's kind of a fine line there, but that's why we did it, was so that these people would have a chance. Not only that, but listen to Zoom, go to Zoom meetings and listen to these newcomers. I'm sorry, but they have no solution, or they're just treatment speak or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, I understand that people need a need to talk, but I'm in the program. I've earned my seat. I'm there for solution, man. I'm there for solution, and you don't have one yet. I love you, but I'd like to teach you the solution. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think that's the point, really, is to look at, okay, going back to the topic, when's the miracle happen? Well, it comes to the discipline. And you don't, in the first 30 days, you don't have the credibility to understand what the discipline is. You're just doing it. I mean, I'm going to reflect back on my first 30 days. I was getting sober because I didn't want to die and I wanted my girlfriend back. That was the only reason I was doing it. And
Absolutely.
then when I fell in love with myself and fell in love with the fact that there's a bigger world out there than I was willing to admit, I stopped chasing getting her back. I stopped chasing my own escape from death and started realizing all I have to do is wake up and keep doing the same things over and over again. And the pink cloud just naturally occurred, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, I agree with you. You can't experience the same thing twice, or new thing twice, right? Or it can't be new twice. But it's I set myself this precedent. So, okay, why don't I just shut up and listen? And take in this toolbox, because that credibility of being able to understand why the steps are there and how simple they really are.
Yeah.
It gave me a purpose of, all right, I don't know all the answers, nor do I need to, but I can come to this community and this fellowship of seeking to understand with others and admit our humility that we're not saints. We're not going to have all the right answers, because if I still, to this day, after 4 years and 3 months sober, listen to my first thought, I'm in jail. It
doesn't go away.
No,
it doesn't. I've been around. You talk to somebody with 40 years, 50 years in the pro, it does. That intrusive thought, it doesn't leave. That's not. It's what we do with that now. Because before I would react on that because I didn't have any tools. Well, now I have tools. So they say, take 2 seconds before you talk, right? Because 2 seconds in the brain is a long time. For us alcoholics, 4.
Yeah.
So no, there's no closed caption until the video is completed. So.
It is that simple. Like, I look back and say, okay, I wanted everything right now. My impatience is so abundant, and I think that is something that's common within us alcoholics because I see it repeated over and over again in the rooms and in shares. But it's like when I stopped and gave myself that time to say, do I really believe what I'm speaking, or am I just filling the room with hot air? You
Yeah.
know, am I sharing with purpose because one need to get something off my chest, or this is how it connects to me? Am I trying to help others because I recognize there's some newcomers in the group that actually could benefit from my experience?
Yeah.
Uh, you know, or am I just doing it because I want recognition for my length of sobriety?
There we
If there's
go.
ego in play, then I just shut up because there's no purpose in that.
Yeah, I agree because I'm Dion and I've been sober since da 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 da. But we only got today.
Right.
It's all we got, and we're all on the same playing field. And every single person is an arm length away from the next drink. So that time, I mean, it's neat, but time is not success. No, the only thing time is really good for is to let non-alcoholics know you're serious. It's really all it's good for. There's some other things, but like trauma.
Well, I actually think that I believe that the recognition of chips and anniversaries is important because it shows some of the
Sure.
newcomers that there are some gifts in the program, the length of sobriety, and that there's different. Uh, Everybody's got a different journey. I remember talking to people that were 9 years sober. And I'm like, they have the mentality of a newcomer.
Sure.
And there's some people I met that had 90 days sobriety, and they're like
And they were Spitfires.
right. Exactly. And so it's,
Yeah.
knowing that we ebb and flow through life because it's all contingent upon our relationship with God and our own ego. It's like, well, it's all centered on those same disciplines.
Yeah. Yeah. When I got in the program this time, I wasn't but 3-4 years sober before I felt I was okay, well enough to start sponsoring, because it took me a while to get through the steps, and I had an anxiety attack at 2 years, diagnosed with PTSD, but it was a different journey. Now, when I was 18 and got sober, I didn't even have a hangover, right? I was living on Skid Row. I was in a halfway house for homeless alcoholics, but I mean, I was back out working within a couple of months. I had done the steps, but the other guys in there who had lived on Skid Row for 10, 15 years needed more time. So it depends on a couple of things: age and how long you've been drinking. It really depends on those two things and how well your body, because it took me 3 months to learn how to walk and talk again when I came back.
I believe it. Everybody's bottom's different though. Like I remember hearing people recognize where they compare their bottoms, and I think that's an actual dangerous thing to do because I can't compare myself that knowingly lived homeless for a year plus, right? That wasn't me. Was I homeless? Yeah, that's a part of my story. But it wasn't an extended period of time. I saw that, I fixed it immediately, and still carried on with my drinking and found a mean, a balance, we'll say, where I wasn't homeless, but I was still living in poverty because I wanted to continue drinking and drugging. But there's some people that just don't give a shit about that. They're just like, I'm going to stay homeless and continue on with my crack habit. And it's like, okay, well, I see that, but there's no comparison there, right? We're equally alcoholics and addicts.
Sure.
But I remember I've had a lot of friends disappear from my life because of the choice of sobriety, and I'm okay with that. I remember it being really hard, but I have had a few friends that I used to party with that have embraced this transition and this transformation of my own self. And it's so funny. One guy who's still around, and he's really like a brother to me. Well, I used to party all the time together, and he said to me at the very beginning, he's like, so do you think you're done for life? Like, are you giving up completely? Or do you, 5 years from now, you think you'll have a drink? And I remember looking, I said, if I drink again, I'm going to die.
Yeah.
It's that simple. I said, so hopefully I never drink again, because I still have that founded belief in my head. Like, if I pick up the drinking again, I'm going to die because of the stuff that I've done, that thorough inventory.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is he was processing this as like, we're never going to hang out again because alcohol is a necessary part of his life.
Oh.
And I went to his birthday party in August in a bar.
Yeah.
And his wife invited me, and it was, there's a point in my sobriety where that would have been really uncomfortable, but I did what I've been taught, which is, all right, this means a lot to him. I'm going to show up. I'm going to put a limit to it because it's a dangerous environment for me to be in. And I'm going to say, hey, buddy, I'm coming, but I'm only staying for 2 hours. And I
Yeah.
said, I'll let you know if I have to leave early. And he was totally cool. He's like, thank you for coming.
Yeah.
And, I called my sponsor. I had my, anniversary chip in my pocket, and I just played pool and had fun with the people I
Yeah.
don't ever get to see anymore. And I left with purpose because I showed up. Right.
Yeah. With your
And
head high, because
yeah.
you went and made it better. You probably kicked everybody's ass at pool that was drinking, but and I think 2 hours is a good time, because that's about the time things start to take that switch in situations. So it's about
Well,
that 2 hour, 2.5 hour mark.
it's so funny because there's a point, like at that point where he asked me, like, would I ever drink again? I was very much in the mindset that I would never set foot in a bar again.
Yeah,
Not
sure.
realizing how my
You
life's
felt
going to
that
unfold.
way. Absolutely.
Right, because it's too dangerous of a place. But now I'm at a place where if somebody invites me and I'm there for a purpose, all right, I go through the
Yeah.
rhythm of, all right, I'm going to be surrounded by alcohol. What am I going to do to set myself up for an escape plan? And how can I make sure that I'm protected? Because this is vulnerable for me. I'm
That's
still
right.
an alcoholic.
Yeah.
That
I don't know why it brings us to my mom, but sometimes I hear people in meetings, they're like, yeah, God tested my sobriety. I'm like, no, he doesn't do that. Just stop walking down the alcohol aisle testing yourself.
right.
I tried to test myself. Why? You go to a fucking meeting. Don't test yourself. Go help the guy over there that needs help instead of worrying about the liquor aisle,
Right.
So it's us that's doing that. And if you feel like you're not, and it doesn't matter how much time you have, if you don't feel like it's right, listen to that instinct. Listen to your gut, because it's right. My head, my brain is wrong. My gut's right, because that's where my intuition is.
That's God speaking, if you ask me.
Absolutely, it is. Yeah.
And I think that applies to many aspects of life outside of alcohol. Like my big challenge these days is, how do I not speed? Like I see a speed limit sign of 70 miles per hour and I say, I'm going 90, because that's how we drive in Florida. And that's my excuse, is everybody else is doing it.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
But the alcoholic in me is saying, yeah, I'm going to do what I want anyways, because nobody's going to stop me from doing what I want. But what do I gain from this? Like, I know through this program that I can go 70 miles per hour and get to the place safety just fine. I don't need to be the rebel that I truly am.
Yeah. Well, it's not like everybody on the road is like, oh, look at them. They're so cool at 90, man. Look at this. Look how badass that guy is.
Right.
They're like, what the fuck are you doing?
Get off my ass. Right. And yeah, he's driving like a maniac. And I've come to this place. I remember hearing this in a meeting about, all of a sudden I started critiquing my own driving, and I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, no, I'm Mario Andretti. I'm going to do what the fuck I want. And now I'm at a place where if I'm speeding, I even call myself out, like, all right, I'm driving like an asshole. I got to settle down.
Yeah. And I'm kind of the opposite, but it was because I didn't have a driver's license most of my adult life. Child support. People are like, how many DUIs you got? None. I didn't have a driver's license.
No kidding.
Yeah, I didn't. Yeah, I don't have any DUIs. I just didn't get caught. I mean, let's clarify that. Now, the thing is if I was drunk, I wouldn't drive. I mean, I just seen too much. But what I did, I always made sure that I lived close to a liquor store. So if I had to walk, like California, the bodega was literally outside my door. But so I get up in the morning, I drive to work. I'm like, well, I don't drink and drive, but I was still drunk. I was still drunk.
You're reminding me
like a grandpa because of that, or a grandma, and I still do.
You're reminding me of so many different stories, but I'll share it like this. Geographic relocation was one of my ways of running state to state, right? And I would just move, even in the same city, like Atlanta, I moved to 3 different parts of the city where nobody knew me. And then I just start the process all over again of getting to know people, becoming cool, and then becoming uncool almost overnight.
And then move on.
Yeah, but I remember when I looked for places to live, I would always pick a place near a bar so I could walk there, or I knew I could walk home, because if I drove there, I didn't want to have the compromising driving home.
I was setting me up so that I could drink the way I wanted to. Absolutely.
100%.
I would be excited. I'm like, how far is the liquor store? Well, it's like 2 blocks. Okay, I'll be there shortly.
Where do I put the deposit
check out
down?
this. Yeah, I'm gonna become good friends with open. Right on, man. Well, I really appreciate this talk. It's been a lot of fun, and it's always fun hanging out with you, man. You
Likewise.
know, so I definitely appreciate this. Got anything you want to say before we wrap up here? It's
I
always
think
the hard part because we don't have anything planned.
No, well, but that's almost the gift in itself, right? Is that like
Yeah,
when you plan something, it's not as authentic and
right.
genuine you want it to be. And God really is in the details when it comes out in your authenticity. And I think that's
Yep.
for me, it's accepting that this program has been an evolution. It's not something like, oh, I got sober, life is magically good again.
That's
No,
right.
life's going to happen. I might get a disease tomorrow that I don't know about and I'm going to have to battle. But like
Mhm.
you said, it's I get to participate in that versus the alternative, which is die a death, an alcoholic death to where I don't get to experience anything. I'm just numb to the world. There's
Yeah.
a
And
difference in that.
yeah, I don't want to be the he died too young from. I don't want to die from alcohol. I don't want to die an alcoholic death, man. I don't.
Yeah.
I want my kids to be proud and say, hey, he did it, and maybe I can do that too.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many. Like I was watching Sports Center yesterday, and Stewart is a renowned announcer who fought cancer and lost his battle to it.
Yeah,
But the way he
yeah,
fought it was inspirational to, in fact, almost how I look at our diseases. To people that I really look up to in sobriety are the ones that are outward about their sobriety. They talk about it, but they also are very articulate in the fact of saying this isn't easy. It never was meant to be easy. It's not
no,
going
it's
to be
not
easy,
easy at all.
but you're going to get better at it if you stay focused
That's
on the
right.
basic fundamentals.
It might get easier, but it'll
Yeah.
never be easy.
Right.
So, it's kind of like money doesn't make me happy, but it sure makes me happier.
That's the next podcast.
Right. So let me Jerry Springer this. I was like, I always have a portion where I kind of like to wrap things up, and you know, we talked about a lot of different things here, not even just miracles, but that's the great thing about AA is everything kind of connects. For me, I think the thing I'm probably most grateful for at the present moment is that I get to be a good example for the people around me now instead of a bad example, because one way or another, I'm an example to my kids. And we all know my kids don't listen to me, but they do everything I say, or they do everything I do, So, all right. Thank you everybody for being here. Brent, thanks for hanging out with us the whole time. Lucas, always good to have you on, man. I know you're really busy, so thanks for, we almost had to do this next year, but thankfully we were get today in, so.
Well, I'd love to, man. I appreciate you having me on again. Hope to do it again and love you, man.
All right. Well, don't log into the noon meeting as iPhone, all right? All right. Love you, brother. Thank you, everybody, for being here.
Thank you.